Well, good morning and welcome to LifePoint. We are concluding today a series called Creating Your Rhythm for Your Life. And today we have not created anything. However, we have learned from the book of Ecclesiastes that life and everything we do is meaningless. Not exactly what people want to hear when they come to church. However, as I've studied this book, I have grown to love the somewhat sarcasm the writer presents to us. If you remember, the word meaningless in Hebrew is hevel, and it means a vapor. The writer is comparing life to a mist or something like fog. It's here one moment, and the next thing you know, it's gone. And ain't that the truth? The older we get, the more true this is. Life really does go by so quickly. So the writer is urging his audience to wake up to themselves and stop living a reckless life. He says, come on, guys, can't you see that life is just here for a little while? And I suspect his audience were living in extremes, and this was his attempt to bring moderation back to society. This writer, who calls himself the teacher, is someone who had it all: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He had experienced and been around for quite some time, and he reflected on everything this world has to offer. And he came to the conclusion that it's all vanity, it's all useless, and it's all unsatisfying. And I suspect this teacher witnessed his audience grumbling, exploiting, mismanaging their wealth and finances. I suspect this teacher saw his audience ignore social justice issues, and perhaps going by this text, he saw his audience living in superior religiously and thinking they were better than others. Even the teacher himself says that wisdom has its limitations. Purpose and meaning is something that we've all strived to have. I started this series saying that a young girl sat in my office crying and asking why. Why isn't my life more? Why isn't my life better? Why do bad things happen to me? Why? And we search sometimes for our whole lives meaning and purpose. And here we learn that everything is meaningless anyway. We are all going to die someday. Nothing what we do really is going to matter when we're gone. And the teacher is describing life between the Garden of Eden and heaven. And he calls this everything under the sun. So this is after creation and before we die and go to heaven. And we know that sin entered the world, and therefore we've missed the mark. We've missed what truly is set out to be, what was set out to be for God's creatures. And therefore, there's an intentional tension that we find ourselves in on a daily basis. And this tension is what we think we want and the tension of what is. And I think that this teacher is telling us that living in this tension can be good for us if we are aware that there's tension going on. If we find ourselves indulging too much food or wine, the tension can pull us back into a moderate self. When we find ourselves highly stressed out over work, that tension can pull us back to a self where we put things into perspective. So this time period, or dash, as I sometimes call it, is our life under the sun. And although this dash may be meaningless, we have an opportunity to create meaning and purpose for our lives. And what this book teaches us is to live this dash, our life under the sun, in moderation and without holding on to it so closely or tightly that we become extremists. The thing about extremists is that they come off as unkind, unloving, self-righteous, egocentric, and full of fear, because what drives those characteristics, what's beneath the surface, is someone who is afraid, perhaps afraid of what's happening in this world, perhaps afraid of dying, perhaps afraid of not being understood and heard. A bunch of emotions can drive someone to extremes. We've all seen this. So this writer or teacher has the eternal versus temporal perspective, We know as Christians that we have a home that awaits us when we die and get to heaven. And while we are living here under the sun, we know that this life will pass and we will enter into another life, the eternal life. So, what this teacher is teaching us is through Ecclesiastes is to understand the value and meaning and purpose of living a good life here and now, while keeping our eyes focused on the eternal perspective. And I think this has confused a lot of Christians. They think that their only home is in heaven, but that's not what we're told to do, nor should it be. The way we live our lives here on earth reflects who we are. And if we're not intentional about our lives, we are in fact wasting what God has given us under the sun. And what we read at the end of all this sarcasm and tongue in cheek is a summary. And here is what it says. It says, keep this in mind. The teacher was considered wise, and he taught the people everything he knew. He listened carefully to many proverbs, studying and classifying them. The teacher sought to find just the right words to express truths clearly. The words of the wise are like cattle prods, painful but helpful. Their collective sayings are like a nail-studded stick with in which a shepherd drives the sheep. But my child, let me give you further advice. Be careful, for writing books is endless, and much study wears you out. That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. So what we learn from this is that the foundation of a meaningful life is to fear God and obey his commands. Now, the word fear in this case does not mean to be afraid. The word fear means to have reverence towards that higher power, which is God, to be in awe and to know that God is for us and he wants the best for us. The other point I wanted to make today is that this text is saying to enjoy the simple pleasures in life. If in fact life has no meaning, then all the more reason to enjoy each day. What we learn from Ecclesiastes is that the pursuit or quest for finding the meaning of life and to obtain wisdom has limitations. And I think we can spend our whole lives wishing we were something better or had better things. We wish we had a better job, a better house, a better health. And the list goes on and on and on. And this teacher is saying, stop searching and start living. And the foundation to this is to love God and obey his commands. Let's transition into a teaching about creating a rhythm for our lives. The more I studied Ecclesiastes, the more I saw the need to get into that beat or a rhythm that's going to keep us on track. Like the writer of Ecclesiastes says, extremes are bad, even religious streams. And how easy is it for our lives to become one-sided? That screams throughout this book. And I mentioned earlier, I suspect the audience that this teacher is talking to had gotten their lives into a bind. There were heightened levels of anxiety, pride, self-righteousness. And the teacher wanted to teach his audience what life was really all about. And to know what life is really all about is to realize that life under the sun is here one moment and gone the next. So your dash better be spent wisely. And B, knowing God is the foundation to our being. Being awe and reverence to God should be what drives our motives, what drives our conversations, what drives our thinking. And to be honest with you, just like the audience of Ecclesiastes, I think we've become all these things? Have we not learned anything? So I challenge you today to start thinking about your dash and what that looks like. Do you have extremes in your life? Are you enjoying the simpler things in life? Do you care about your partner and your family and your friends enough to put work down, put your phone down, and have a meaningful conversation with them? Creating a rhythm for life is a pattern of priorities, and it helps keep us balanced or in alignment. When we go to extremes, it means we're not regulated. It means our nervous system is out of whack, and the things that should be driving us have been taken over by these thoughts and these feelings that thing that is consuming us. Creating a rhythm serves as a framework for us to enjoy life because we've learned to keep with the beat of what works. And this includes living out our values as virtues. Values are so important. We all have values. But virtues are the behaviors that we have, that we show to others. And I think there's 4 things that I want to suggest to help create stability, purpose, and connectedness. And all these things equal a life lived in harmony or alignment. We often separate our parts of ourselves like work and church and all this kind of thing. But I believe all these things work together to make a whole self, which, when working together, brings harmony, peace, calmness. When an orchestra plays together in harmony, it's beautiful. But when one instrument is out of tune, it sounds and it feels awful, and it creates like an unrest to the listener, and you just want to run away and hide from that irritating noise. And so what I'm going to give you are 4 life core principles to keep in harmony and create an ebb and flow for your life. And this is what the teacher in Ecclesiastes is trying to tell their audience in order to have a more fulfilling and abundant life, as we are promised by God. The 4 things are worship, work, rest, and play. Number 1, worship. What does worship do? Worship renews us. Our relationship with God grounds us in our spiritual beings. I forget who said this, but I heard the saying, we are not humans living in a having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings that God created to have a human experience. Worship is not something we just do on Sundays. It is something we need daily, and it goes in harmony with the other 3 areas. And I think in today's world, we need this more than ever because it reminds us who we are. This is what the teacher of Ecclesiastes was talking about when he said to fear God. We have this external being called God to do life with us. We need to connect to this area of worship to renew us. It also reminds us that everything is not about me. Everything does not revolve around me. Everything does not depend on me. Everything is not profitable or good for me. And as we worship, we mature in our faith because we are being renewed on a daily basis. It renews our mind and our soul, and keeping the eternal perspective alive while making the most of our lives here under the sun. The second area is work. And work reflects who we are. And sometimes I think we allow work to define who we are, but it's not. Work is something that we have chosen to do under the sun in our short little dash. Work is a reflection of our calling, or our gifts and our talents. And there is a difference between being and doing. We never corrected anyone when they said to us when we were little, so what do you want to do? Or what do you want to be when you grow up? And we said a nurse or a doctor or a hockey player or a lawyer or a pastor. But no, that's That's what we want to do. Who do you want to be? Being is what? Being is loving. Being is compassionate, kind, generous. That's who I want to be. I may want to be good at my work, but I want to be great at who I am. Harmony brings us back to who we are. We get fulfillment from work, but we get meaning from our being. So work is a dimension of our life. It's not or should not be our life. When you work, when your work becomes your identity, I think that's a sign that you're not regulated. When work becomes your self-esteem and you think more work equals a better person, that is a sign that you're not regulated. When you feel you are indispensable, you probably need some more worship in your life. Because as the teacher says, you're here one moment and gone the next. You will be replaced. It's not about you. When work controls your time instead of you controlling it, you know that you are not balanced or regulated. You're out of harmony and you're out of alignment. And when God created the earth, he did it in a rhythm, right? In a pattern. He did it on certain days. And at the end of each day, he reflected and he said, it is good. If you can't reflect after each day at work and say, I did good today, your work may be out of alignment. See, when you have a rhythm of rest, play, and worship, your work will have your best, but it's going to be in harmony with the rest of you. Work needs to work in harmony with everything else in life, and not a wild drummer beating to its own drum. It's together. Area number 3 is rest. So rest restores us. Rest means to cease from work or labor. We need to stop working and call it good. Be grateful for the life you have. You've heard the saying, attitude positions the mind and gratitude positions the hearts. Rest equalizes our work. Rest is not optional, it's vital. That's why God has it as one of the 10 commandments. Rest is part of the rhythm we need to create for a healthy, happy life. So how do you know if your rest is out of alignment? Well, I think if you think that sleep and rest is a waste of time, it might be out of alignment. When you feel guilty for not doing something, your rest might be out of alignment. When your emotions are super tender or sensitive, you might be out of alignment. When you feel like you're the only one, your rest might be out of alignment. You know, I love the story of Elijah. We just read about this a few weeks ago. Elijah said, I'm the only prophet left. And God said, no. And God said to him, oh, you need some food. You need some sleep. You need some rest. Elijah's emotions were getting out of hand, and God said, it's okay. You just need some rest. It's so important. And the last area is play. So worship renews us, work reflects us, rest restores us, and play recreates us. The word leisure in Latin means to be permitted or to be allowed. And it's interesting that the Latin word for work means non-leisure or not permitted. Recreation is designed to recreate us. And I think when you're playing, you should include these 4 things. You should experience life. You got to feel life. Do something that's really going to make you feel alive and feel life. The second thing you should include is to do things that you love and do things that show expressions of love to others. You should laugh. What's that saying? Laughter is the greatest medicine. Laugh. And the fourth thing is to do things that leave stress and concerns behind you. In other words, be intentional in your recreational activities. When you include play in your rhythm for life, it does these things. It will help you revitalize your body. It will help relieve tension and anxiety. It will restore joy in your life. It will reconnect you to reality and to relationships. Apparently, 52% of employees have unused vacation days. Why? You have to question their priorities, because to me, that equals unrhythm. Rest and play are vital to have. So I encourage you to develop a rhythm or harmony of these four areas: worship, work, rest, and play, in a regular, intentional way, and let them become a framework to create a pattern of priorities in your life. This is the teaching we get from Ecclesiastes. When we develop harmony in every area of our lives, it keeps us balanced, self-regulated, and of a sound mind. Jesus said he has not given us a spirit of fear, but he has given us a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. The world is noisy. It's like an orchestra where instruments are playing off key. And I know we want to run and hide. But if we can create our own harmony in our lives, you will experience that spirit that Jesus gave us. I hope this was helpful today. We're going to take a break next week as it's the long weekend. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you back in person on Sunday, September 10th. Come back to our Welcome Back to Church brunch. We're going to have a great time together. But in the meantime, may God bless you. May he keep you safe. May he give you wisdom that you need to create that rhythm for your life that will bring peace, love, joy in all that you do. This life under the sun is not meaningless. Instead, it is full of meaning and purpose. And your job is to love God and obey his commands. We'll see you in a few weeks. Amen. Stay safe.